Hey y'all, and welcome to Bradley the Singing Chef. Today I am going to make one of my favorite comfort foods, beef stroganoff. If you've never had this dish, oh my gosh, you are going to love it. Thick mushroom gravy with beef. I'm going to serve mine today over some egg noodles that I've got. This is extraordinary, and it is going to feed your belly and your soul. So let's get going. Okay. A little bit of prep work to do. The first thing I've got is one medium-sized onion that I've peeled and I have halved so that I can slice it, okay? I want slices of onions, not a dice. So I'm gonna hold on to that root end with my fingers curled under and run my knife all the way through horizontally, getting some fairly thin slices of onion. Way down to the root. Root helped me hang on. Then I can toss that into my garbage bowl. Got a little bowl over here for these onions to go in because I'm not quite ready for them yet. But I want to get all the prep work out of the way because once this recipe gets going, it's pretty, quick to put together. Okay, there is one half. Let's do the same thing with the other one. Just run through, getting some nice thin slices. I think the thinner the better. If you think about the thickness of the onion trying to be about the thickness of your mushrooms, so that everything's a little bit consistent, is kind of nice. All right, root goes away into my garbage bowl. And then everything else for this onion, I'm going to reserve on the side in this bowl. Come on now. Okay, next piece of business. We need 2 cloves of garlic minced. So I'm gonna smash to take off the peel. Toss the peel away. Smash the second one. Take off this peel. Should have been more thorough with my smash. That would have gone easier, Bradley. All right, and then I'm just gonna run my knife through the cloves of garlic down to the root. Toss that away, and then across the other direction. Just keep running my knife through till I get the mince that I want. Second clove. Throw the root. And just keep running your knife through till you get a pretty small mince of garlic. The bulk of this dish is actually the mushroom gravy kind of sauce. The beef is there for flavor and a little bit of texture, but to me this is a mushroom dish almost as much as it is a beef dish. Speaking of beef, the type of beef that you use in this recipe really does matter in my opinion. I mean, you could use like tougher meat, like stew meat or whatever, if you want to save some money, but I think it's just as cost effective to get a decent ribeye, just one ribeye steak, which you would think, okay, oh my gosh, I'm ordering ribeye in a restaurant, that's really expensive. But this one ribeye is gonna feed probably at least 6 to 8 portions of this stroganoff. So in that way, I think you're saving money. So I've got to break down this ribeye. It has a little bit of bone in it, and it has a little bit of a fat cap on it. So I'm going to take my knife, take off that fat cap around that outer border. It was supposed to be boneless, but the butcher left me one little jewel of a bone to deal with over here on the other end. So it's easy, just cut around it. It's nothing that is a big deal. Perfect. Great. It has a little bit of meat on it and I don't want to waste any of it, so I'm just going to make sure I've got all of that off of the bone. All right, so fat cap, bone, into my garbage bowl. A little bit of additional fat over here You want a piece of meat that does have some marbling of fat, but you don't necessarily want giant hunks of it, which is why I'm trying to get rid of a lot of it. Okay, so here's where the fun begins, okay? I have a piece of parchment paper. Came out of the roll, looks like this, right? It's a pain to deal with anytime you want to use it. Little trick I learned. If you will take your parchment paper and wad it up, it will behave after that and be whatever shape you want it to be. I just need this one to lay a little bit flat, okay? So I've got these two little pieces of meat still that I'm gonna use that I trimmed off of the bone. Then I'm gonna take on this parchment paper and I'm gonna put my ribeye on one half of it, and then I'm gonna fold over kind of like an envelope over the top. And then, Hulk smash. Take my rolling pin and I'm going to smash the dickens out of this ribeye to flatten it out. Pretty thin. You'll smash from the middle out to the outer edge. It will keep moving the meat for you. Turn it around so you can get a good angle on it. Whoops, I hit my knife. That's not only going to flatten out the steak, it's also tenderizing the meat. Okay, so I feel like that is enough banging for one video. My apologies for the noise, but it is necessary. All right, throw that parchment away, and that leaves me with a much flatter piece of steak to work with. All right, so I'm gonna get my eye on over here. I've got a fairly deep frying pan on over here, saute pan, because this is gonna get pretty full with all the sauce and all the good stuff that's gonna go in this, okay? Garlic back there on the board. That little bitty piece of meat that we had before, I'm just gonna run my knife through that because we want pretty small pieces. And then the whole steak, you can just go through and slice across. You're gonna get these thin slices. There's some fat in there that's marbled, that's okay, that's just flavor. It's so tender that the knife really does go through it pretty easily now that you've pounded it with your mallet or rolling pin, as I chose to use. A little bit too much fat there, so we trim that off. Great, so now I have these like strips, right? Sort of looks like fajitas. I still want it smaller than that, okay? So I'm just gonna take that entire pile of beef and go the opposite direction through all of those slices until I have little bite-sized pieces of meat, because that is what I want. Okay, extra little piece of cartilage there. Thanks, butcher. Almost did all of the job. We actually have pretty good butchers here in the Winter Garden area, so I can't really complain. Just joking, guys. And as you cut through to get down to these bite-sized pieces, you'll see, like if there was like a big piece of fat in the center of the ribeye, that now that you've chopped it down, that's all you have left. You can just kind of toss those pieces of fat away. Like I said, it's okay to have some marbling, but I don't think you want just like a giant hunk of fat. And that is about the size that we want those to be. Now, I've got my pan over here heating, and what I want to do with this beef is I'm literally going to do like 25 to 30 seconds of a sear on the beef. And then I'm going to flip it over and do another 25 to 30 seconds, and I'm going to get it out of the pan. I don't want to cook all the way through. It's okay if it remains pink. So I've got some olive oil. Do a good drizzle in my pan. And I'm just going to take all of this meat in the pan. I'm gonna season it with some salt and some black pepper. Then I'm gonna take some tongs and I'm just gonna get it spread around where it's in just like a single layer in the pan to get a really good sear on one side of each of those pieces of meat. Perfect. Alrighty. So I'm gonna let these go for like 30 seconds. I'm literally gonna flip them over, let them go for 30 seconds more, and then I'm gonna use a slotted spoon. Always catches the potato. I don't know if that's the right line from Influence, but and I'm gonna scoop these out, leaving the juices in the pan over into a side bowl. Once I get these turned and removing them from the pan, I will be right back. Okay, y'all, 30 seconds each side, literally. That is all I'm doing. They're gonna double piece to cook all the way through. They're gonna cook through in the sauce. I'm using my slotted spoon to get all those seared pieces of meat out and set aside, either on a plate or in a bowl. There's so many juices in the bottom of this pan, and that is all flavor that is going in our beautiful beef stroganoff. All right, to this pan, I am going to add some butter, because we like butter. About 2 tablespoons. Butter into the pan, along with 1 more tablespoon of olive oil, and those sliced onions that we had earlier are going into the hot pan. Get those sauteing. Gonna let the onions go for just a little bit. Toss them around in the butter and the oil so they can start breaking down. I'm gonna salt and pepper this layer as well. So salt on the onions is gonna also help them get translucent a little bit faster, release their sugars. Some black pepper on the onions, and I'm just gonna let those go for a little bit. Okay, while I'm waiting for the onions a little bit, I'm gonna work on some fresh herbs, okay? I have some fresh thyme that I'm just gonna take off the stem and leave on the board. Working for about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of fresh thyme leaves. Just stripping the stems. I want thyme to be the predominant herb flavor in the stroganoff, but I do have a little bit of fresh rosemary just because I can't help myself. I love rosemary, and it's fresh from my garden, so use it or lose it, as they say, right? You don't want your garden to go to waste. All right, getting there. More leaves this time. Onions are starting to look good over there. Perfect. Yeah. Give these a stir. Starting to get some color, which is good. All right. Remember that garlic that we minced? That is now going to go into the hot tub. Toss that garlic around in with the onions. You guys know, onion and garlic, they're like my second best friends to butter. All right, now I have 2 8-ounce containers, so a pound of sliced baby portobello mushrooms, okay? I am going to put these in, I think some of them are a little bit big, like this one's a little bit long for me, so I'm gonna break those that are too big as I distribute them into the pan. Some of these look like they weren't babies, so get those broken down. No rhyme or reason really to the size. It's all going into a sauce, right? Just picking through these to check the bigger ones get broken down a little bit. They're so easy to snap in half, there's no need to bother even using your knife on them. All right. Rest of those in that one look okay. One more that's a little bit big. All right, that's 8 ounces. I'm also just judging like what my pan is gonna hold. This tub actually doesn't have very many large, so that's good. Perfect. Now the thing about mushrooms is, kind of like when you wilt spinach, you start with a lot in your pan or your pot, and then you look back and after they cook down, there's so much less it seems, but all the flavor is going in there. All right, so I'm gonna give those mushrooms and onions and garlic a toss to get everybody working together. Crank up my heat a little bit so those will start browning and cooking down in the pan. Okay, back to my time. I wasn't finished, but the pan was telling me it was time to add the mushrooms. If those onions get too dark on you, you know, you don't want that, so go ahead and get those mushrooms in there. One more little sprig of thyme. Like I said, stroganoff is one of my favorite comfort foods. It's not something that I grew up eating, but I discovered it later in life, and it is just like the epitome of warm comfort food, especially now that days are getting colder in some parts of the country anyway. I'm still sweating here in Florida most days. But as it's getting colder, you want that warm comfort food feeling, so stroganoff it is. All right, my one tiny little sprig of rosemary, strip those leaves off. Like I said, I want this to be more thyme herb forward, but I do like a little bit of this foresty goodness that is rosemary in the mix too. Put that all in the middle of your board, run your knife through. That's going to release some of the oils and the herbs, make it all the more flavorful. All right, let's check on these mushrooms. They're already starting to shrink up, which is good. These are probably going to take another 4 or 5 minutes to continue browning, so I won't make you just sit here and stare at me and me feel like I need to tell jokes. So I'm gonna let these go for about 5 minutes and I'll be right back. All right, y'all, I am back. My mushrooms have, shrunk so much. They release a lot of liquid as they are cooking down, and they are beautifully brown in with those onions and garlic. The kitchen already smells unbelievable. All right, so here's where things get going. So we are going to make this into sort of a gravy sauce, okay? To do that, the first thing I need to do is add a thickening agent into the pan. You can use cornstarch or you can use flour. I'm using all-purpose flour today, and I'm putting in about 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, sprinkling it all over everything that is in the pan. And then I'm going to stir and cook that in to the liquid that's already in there with all the veggies, mushrooms, garlic, all that goodness. And it's going to already look like it's thickened, but you need to cook out that raw flour before you add anything else. It's going to look not so pretty first, but it will get there, I promise. But you definitely want to cook out the raw flour. And it doesn't take very long. It's done. All the flour is incorporated into the mix. Okay. To the pan, I am now going to add 2 cups of beef broth. That is going to help me deglaze the bottom of the pan where all of those bits of beef might still be lingering from the sear of the beef. Get that beef broth in there and then scrape the bottom of your pan with the wooden spoon, because all of those bits on the bottom are flavor bombs. So make sure you get all of those. And the flour is going to help thicken that broth to a beautiful sauce, okay? All right, I like a lot of black pepper in this dish, so you will probably see me peppering more than you will see me salting in the first stages of this. I'm going to take another pretty heavy pinch or two of black pepper and put it in the mix. Next thing I'm going to add is some Worcestershire sauce. Not all people put this in their stroganoff. I love it. I think it's another added umami flavor to the stroganoff. So I'm just gonna probably put in maybe, I don't know, 2 teaspoons or so. Dash, dash, dash of Worcestershire. Then I'm going to add some Dijon mustard. Just about, I'd say a tablespoon. So there's like a half a tablespoon into the party. All right, gonna get that and the Worcestershire stirred around into this sauce. And it is going to slowly start thickening up for me. Now all those herbs that we chopped, I'm not quite ready for those yet. I want to hit those sort of last into the mix over here. And then the last component that is going to go in and make this so creamy, comforting, is we're going to add some sour cream into this beautiful gravy to make it nice and creamy in texture. This is going to continue to reduce down, thicken up for me. That's probably going to take another 3 or 4 minutes. So I'm going to let this go, keep stirring it, and I'll be back. Okay guys, this sauce is just starting to thicken. It's not all the way there yet, but I don't want it to be. But it is right at that moment where you can tell that it's no longer just liquid. Like, it's definitely, the simmer is starting to do its job and helping this come into sort of a gravy state. So it's time to add the sour cream, which is the magic ingredient for any stroganoff in my opinion. I'm gonna take it's about 1/3 cup times 2. So 2/3 a cup of luscious sour cream. The tang of this sour cream, oh gosh, it's what makes this dish, I think. And you know, sour cream is like butter's friendly cousin. I'm not mad at that. All right, set that to the side. All that in there. You caught me. Okay, stir in all the sour cream into this gravy. At first it's gonna look like it's split, but don't worry. As it continues to simmer and cook, that sour cream is just gonna melt right in to this beautiful mushroom gravy. Ooh. Great. Now that that is all incorporated, it's gonna continue to thicken still, thanks to that flour that we added. Then, as it continues to simmer, there's a siren outside. Can you tell? It's home cooking, y'all. As this continues to simmer and get a little bit thicker, it's time for me to add all of that beautiful ribeye that we seared off at the very beginning of this process back into the pan, along with every stinking bit of pan juice that is in there. It's part of the reason that I like using a bowl, because I think it, you know, just catches everything. All right, so pull all of that meat into the mixture. That's why we didn't, you know, cook it all the way through, because it's going to continue to cook. in this sauce until it just becomes perfect and still tender and not overcooked. All right, guys. This is the last non-commercial break we're gonna take. I'm gonna let this continue to simmer until it is exactly the thick consistency that I want it to be. And then we're gonna plate up, and most importantly, I'm going to eat. I'll be right back. All right, gang, last step. Gotta get those herbs in the pot. All that thyme and all that rosemary has been dying to meet this dish. So in it goes. Stirred in. The minute those herbs hit that hot sauce, oh my gosh. Oh, it smells so good. It's starting to really get where I want it thickening wise. Get those herbs going. Let that continue to bubble away and simmer. Okay. Now, this dish is great all by itself. I could just eat it by the bowl full, to be honest. But you could serve it on a bed of pretty much whatever you wanted to. I've served it on fresh cooked rice. I've served it on mashed potatoes. That would be fantastic as well. Today, I'm using egg noodles that I already prepared. So I have some egg noodles here, which I shall put into my serving bowl. Ready for the stroganoff goodness. Gonna put a little bit of salt on just the noodles to flavor them, and a little bit of black pepper. Again, layer every flavor you can. Flavor every layer you can. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. This is starting to get right where anyone would want it to be. Getting a spoonful of this goodness onto my noodles. Oh my gosh. This looks amazing. Gotta show you. I mean, bowl. Oh, goodness. That's perfect. Exactly what I want stroganoff to look like. Fork, mouth. Let's go. Beef, mushrooms, noodles. I just want to like curl up with a blanket and this and Netflix until my heart is content. The beef is so tender. It's not overcooked at all. And the mushroom gravy, my gosh, so much good flavor. And the herbs are perfect in it. I really do hope that you will try this recipe with your family and your friends. I think it is going to feed your soul, and you're gonna want it all the time, just like I do. Thank you so much for joining me on Bradley the Singing Chef. Eat well, love always. Bon appetit, y'all.